Please order in the hall. 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 Please order in the hall and please be seated.
Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace, love, salutations, and blessings to the house of David, which is the elect. And, as you just saw, was a clip of, Benjamin Netanyahu, um, preparing, to address the UN. And, as he approached the podium, you saw a massive walkout, right, as a protest against, the state of the 48ers, and as I saw this, and, I've seen other clips as well. I got this clip over here showing the same thing, and, just reading the comments and, just seeing the climate, right? That is what the Lord is doing on the earth as it pertains to Amalek, okay, is showing that, they are becoming, as the scripture says, greatly despised, right? Let me pull that up. Obadiah chapter 1, verse 2. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. You see, now this is, a prophecy, a vision, right, that Obadiah had concerning Edom as a whole, right? As it says, Edom will be humbled. But we know that Amalek is the first of the nations, as it says in the book of Numbers, right? And that word first, Ra'ash, meaning the chief, right, the head. So, knowing that we are living in the age of Edom, right, the Edom rulership, okay, Esau being the end of the world, we know that Amalek has the larger portion of dominance in Esau's kingdom, okay, and that goes, from the various different institutions that they control, okay, even the actual way that the world operates, right? The central banking elite families all consist of majority, if not all of them, consist of Amalekites. You see, but in the end, right at the end, the Lord was going to um, visit their iniquity. Okay, and there's another. Let me get that in the book of Numbers because it talks about Numbers 20, Numbers 24, right? It talks about the what was going to befall Edom, right, or shall I say Amalek, in the end. The book of Numbers, chapter 24, verse 18, it says, let's start at 17. It says, "And I shall see him, but not now," right? And this was a a parable, right, that Balaam, right, had, right? Let me just get, because I always get the two confused. And Balaam said unto Balak, yep. So Balaam, right, because you have Balak was a king that the king of Moab, I believe, that commissioned um Balaam to prophesy against Israel, right? But the Lord basically gave this individual Balaam a vision of the end. all right, and what was going to happen to these nations, right, the enemies of Israel, okay, when that star out of Jacob appeared, who is Yahweh. So it says, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy the children of Sheth. And Edom shall be a possession, Seir also shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do valiantly. Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, which is once again Yahweh. You see, and that is how the blessing is going to come unto Israel, right? That is how Israel is going to, take the possess the land of Israel, right? In the whole, it's whole entirety, all right. And it's not going to be by way of, a prime minister, okay, named Benjamin Netanyahu, okay, because those individuals are not the true biblical Hebrew Israelites. And this is what everybody, is starting to see. All right. That is why, they are becoming greatly despised because the Lord is, searching out there and, searching out there hidden things. Reading on, it says, um, out of Jacob it shall come he that shall have dominion, and he shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. And when he looked on Amalek, he took up this parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations. Okay. And this is twofold because when we came out of ancient Egypt, Amalek was the first nation, or should I say the first tribe, right, of the nation of Esau to, basically go to war with us. Okay. They were the first ones to basically cause us grief and to attack us, when we was coming out of the land of Egypt, right, out of that captivity, and traveling, through, the the wilderness, right? It says, and also, like I said, this first of the nations being what the chief. Okay, when we always go into this, you could never go into it enough to give the edification. It says Ra'ash, right? Which means first, beginning, best, chief, the choice part. Okay, so they have the choice part. You know what? Let me see something. What does, let me ask Gronk. I already had that pulled up. What does choice part mean? Let's see. Don't want an image. Okay, here we go. What does choice part mean? So let's see. It says choice often implies something, blah, blah, blah. Part together, choice part could mean particularly desirable or high quality component of something larger, right? Like a prime section, a key role, or a standout piece. All right. What what about in a blessing? Let's see. In the context of a blessing, the phrase choice parts likely refers to a particular significant, cherished, or desirable portion of the blessing being given or received. Since blessings are often expressions of goodwill, divine favor, or positive wishes, whether religious, culture, or personal context, the choice part would emphasize the best or most meaningful aspect of the blessing, right? And remember, that Isaac blessed Esau, right, and told him that he was, going to have the fatness of the earth. Okay, he was going to have the dew of heaven, et cetera, et cetera. So if Esau was going to get that, which that blessing was, temporary, okay, because the blessing that he gave Jacob was the blessing that was eternal, right? So when Isaac gave Esau that blessing, um, Amalek, being the grandson of Esau, right, received the choice part of it. So they got the most meaningful aspect of the blessing, right? Which would be what the fat, the fatness of it, the best part of it. Okay. So that is what that means also when it means that the first of the nations. So when we go back, right, it says in place and time, in order or rank. So out of all of the tribes of Amalek, I mean all of the tribes of Esau, Amalek is ranked the highest. Okay. It says the principal thing. But let's see what the latter end of it is. So Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end, and that is once again because his blessing wasn't eternal, right? His blessing wasn't something that was going to last forever. There was an expiration date, right? And as it says in the book of Job, he has that the Lord created a bounds that he cannot pass. And we are at that point where, his time is up. See, and so that's why it says, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. Okay. And that's going to happen, after they serve, their double portion of punishment in the kingdom. But before that, right, the Lord was going to expose him, right? The Lord was going to discover his iniquity. The Lord was going to bring him down. He was going to humble him, right? As it says here in the book of Obadiah, right? 1 verse 2. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. Okay, let's go into this word despised. It says what? To despise, to hold in contempt, disdained, right? Despicable, vile, worthless. See? To be scorned, to think to scorn a vile person. And this right here was an indication of that. The fact that you had these delegates, okay, walk out in the mass numbers to the point where the pretty much the auditorium was very empty, or scarcely empty. Okay, I'm sure you had the 48ers that were there, and then of course you had America, the American delegates was there. You had some few others, but for the majority of it, as you see, a lot of people you know left. Okay, let's run that back. A lot of people left. Actually, let's run this one.
Please, order in the hall. Please, order in the hall.
And even people that didn't leave, you had some people that were just clapping.
Please, order in the hall. Please, order in the hall.
Hmm.
Please, order in the hall, and please be seated.
Everybody paying attention to that guy, and it's because once again, right? And this isn't a common thing. This isn't something that the delegates are do often, right? But because Esau, right, because Amalek is greatly despised, right? They're showing their disdain of Amalek by doing this. And all he had to do was just sit there and watch, right? He couldn't say anything. He just had to wait until it was all done. Now imagine how embarrassing that is. Imagine how shameful that is, right? Where your colleagues, right, on the international stage, right, are just not even before you say a word, they're just getting up and dismissing themselves out of your presence because that's how greatly despised you are. And even when you look at the comments here, okay, you have, like I said, a lot of people are privy, right? A lot of people are hip to, the just the straight wickedness that these Amalekites do, right? Everybody's tired of their shit. See? Yeah, why wasn't he arrested? Yeah, because he's a he's a fugitive. Matter of fact, you see this, right? A lot of people say everyone should have left and he should have been arrested. Let's type in what is a fugitive. What is a fugitive? A fugitive is a person who is fleeing or escaping from something, typically to avoid capture, punishment, or danger, right? The term is most commonly used in legal or criminal contexts, but can also apply more broadly. Okay, so this Netanyahu literally is a fugitive because he is wanted by the international court. Okay, but Esau as a whole, right, going back to their forefather Cain, is known to be a fugitive. Let's pull that up. Genesis 4, verse 12. Let's start at we start at 12. This is the what the Lord cursed Cain with. It says, "When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength." And that is why even in that land, right, that small portion of land that they call the state of the 40 acres, they got to import trees, right? They got to ask for donations to try to beautify the land over there, because the actual earth, even though that's a fertile land, right? The was called the Fertile Crescent. It's not yielding forth its strength unto Esau, right? It says, even here in Babylon, right? All you see is just withered trees, right? Because everything is just full of concrete, because he made this place as a wilderness, and as it says in the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter. But reading here, it says, "A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth." All right, a fugitive and a vagabond. And we just read what the definition of a fugitive is. So if he is a fugitive, someone who is fleeing or escaping punishment, right, or danger, okay, because he is guilty, he is a criminal, he can't literally, right, leave the earth. So what was his next best option? His next best option was to hide himself. All right. And the way that he hid himself was by deceiving the nations, right? By changing, okay, the landmarks, right? By changing the names of nations, by calling himself the people of God, the Israelites, okay, and then discontinuing the true biblical Israelites from being a nation of people. That is something a fugitive would do. A fugitive would a fugitive a few, let's see, commit identity theft. Let's see, identity theft. Let's see, to hide himself. A fugitive, someone actively invading capture, typically from law enforcement, might commit fugitive identity theft as a means to conceal their identity and avoid detection. But whether they do depends on their circumstances, resources, and motivation. Okay. Why might a fugitive commit identity theft? Identity theft using someone else's name, right, can help a fugitive avoid being tracked by authorities, right? And see, the thing is, right, we know that Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai is the authorities, right? The head authorities, but the scriptures likens, the angels as judges, and even us that is, the sons of God, Yahweh Shai, quoted Psalms 82 and said, I have said, as the Heavenly Father said, I have said, ye are gods. Okay. Matter of fact, Paul, right, spoke about how um, we shall judge the world. See, First Corinthians 1, 1 Corinthians 6, verse 2 says, "Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world?" See, so if we, Lord willing, be in that, the first fruits, the 144,000, okay, the governing body with Yahushai, the house of David, we have that privilege, right, that honor to judge the world. Then this devil, right, would want to try to hide himself. And the fact that now, you have the judges of the earth, okay, being the small judges, because you have Yahushua as the main judge. But he is speaking through us, as it says in Second Thessalonians, that wicked shall be revealed, right? The wicked shall be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth. So now that the judges, the true judges of the earth, are awakened, okay, what are they doing? They revealing the wicked. It says, can help a fugitive avoid being tracked down from authorities. Access to resources. Fugitives often need money. And what did Amalek do? Okay, in order to gain power, give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who make the laws. So their God, that's what Esau's, I think Amalek's father, right? His name was Eliphaz, all right, or Eliphaz, Eliphaz, which means my God is gold. So Esau's son was Eliphaz, and then I believe Eliphaz's son was Amalek. Okay, and as you see with the central bankers, this whole entire system is based around what? Money. And then they hoard the riches unto themselves because a fugitive needs access to resources. So fugitives needs money, travel documents, or access to services to stay on the run. Stealing someone's identity can provide access to credit cards, passports, blah, 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 blah. Blending in, adopting a false identity allows a fugitive to move through society without arousing suspicion, such as during police checks or border crossings. And that's exactly what that's exactly what he did, right, for a long time. He went through the different nations, okay, iconoclasm, changing, the images, painting the likeness of his face, all right, covering the faces of the judges thereof. See, that allowed him for a time period to move through society without arousing suspicion. See, creating certain events, right, so that it would look as if they were the people that were always persecuted. Okay, speaking about what happened in Germany, all right, even what happened 2 years ago in October, uh, there's a lot of information that shows or proves that that was something that was a inside job. All right, just like what happened in September in 2001. But they do these things so that persecution, so that they could play the victim while still being the villain. They're very, very deceptive, man, a very subtle beast, right? As the Lord said, he made the serpent the more subtle than any other beast of the field, all right? But in the end, the Lord said that he was not your hidden things was going to be searched out. Okay, let's get that back in Obadiah. All right, Obadiah chapter 1, verse 6. It says, "How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up?" Okay, because they did all these things in secrecy. Okay, they said, "Well, who shall see us?" In the book of Psalms 64, it speaks about that. The secret counsels of the wicked. And when you go into that word right here, hide me, Psalm 64, verse 2, hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity. Okay, and I did a video on this before. Um, That's not right. Is it here? No. No, there's another word, but when you go into council, it goes into the word kabah, right? Or Kabbalah, which you already know what that's about. All right. But jumping down, verse 5, it says, they encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares. privily. They say, who shall see them? They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. Because as being a fugitive, their main objective was first to hide themselves, right? And then if they were able to hide themselves, then they're able, and they're hiding themselves and playing in broad daylight, right? That's what they did for so many years. But when the Lord once again woke up the judges, right, which are the prophets, men of the Lord, what started to happen? Okay, the deceit, right, the deception, the lies, all of that started to be quenched. All of that started to unravel. All right, and the truth that has been so long without fruit has been declared, and this truth is their biggest issue. Okay, the truth, when you have built your a world, right, when you have built your society on lies, when you have built your whole premise on a lie, the truth is like a kryptonite for you. All right, and that is what we profess, and that is why they now trying to make a man an offender for a word. That is why they are they're moving fast, right, because they know they have a short time. Okay, they're trying to push this agenda of the beast system. Okay, doing all these things because all of Esau is guilty, but Amalek, is at the forefront of it, right? He is the mastermind behind this whole agenda. Okay, it says, both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep, but the Most High shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly shall they be wounded. So shall they make their own tongue fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. See, once they get exposed and find and people start to realize, what they're really about, how wicked and evil, how treacherous, how much ill dealings they do, people are going to, flee away from them. Okay, and that's what this was showing. People are no longer going to sympathize with them, right? No, no, people are not going to, look at them like, oh, they're not going to have any pity for them because that whole pity was really based. It was a whole ruse. It was based off of a lie. It was a scheme, a scam, all right, a wile of the devil. You see? Salaki, where were we? I just missed jump. My bad. Oh, yeah, 64 here. It says, all men shall fear and shall declare the work of the Most High, for they shall wisely consider his doing. Right, and this is what we're saying because we are saying that this is being done by the spirit and power, right, and will of the one and only true living God, who is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And we are declaring that hey, we have awakened to know that we are Jacob. We are the Israelites, and they are the devil, the wicked, the liar, the seed of Cain, the seed of the serpent, right? The seed of Edom. Those are those people, and there's nothing now they can do about it. All right, there's nothing they can do about it. And the only thing they can do is now stand in their enchantments, right? Which they labored from a youth. Only they could do is just continue to try to deceive and continue to try to use the sleight of hand and all these things, but it's not working because once again you have the judges that are awakened, right? And then we are hey, well, we are on the case, man, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. Okay, and this is why people are waking up. This is why you have comments like this. All right. Yeah, so let's go. Let's go here. And this is what he got to do now.
So let's do something else. So first at the UN, let's do a pop quiz. And raise your hand if you know the answer.
Look at it. What are you in elementary school? Okay, let's do a pop quiz. Let's listen.
First question. Who shouts death to America? Is it A, Iran, B, Hamas, C, Hezbollah, D, the Houthis, or E, all of the above? All of the above.
Look at how empty that place is. Look how empty it is. And this is one of his counsels or enchantments that he has to stay in, right? This is what they have to do. Like, oh, let's continue to use sensationalism, right? It, when the president of Palestine, which we are not advocating, we don't advocate for the Palestinians. Those are heathens too. Okay, and they don't belong in that land either. Okay, at the end of the day, both of those heathens are going to, be uprooted and taken out of that land, and only the true biblical Hebrew Israelites, right, are going to possess that land. Thus saith the Lord. Thus saith the Scriptures. All right, but um, everybody can see, right, the dichotomy between what is happening, right, between the Palestinians, what they're going through versus what the small hats, right, are going through. And this is what Netanyahu that has to do in order to try to galvanize the people to be on his side. Out here, he loves his little PowerPoints and his little boards, right, that he brings to try to illustrate his point. But this is just mad tacky, man. This is just mad, tacky and just corny. Okay, it's really it shows how the scripture says, "Is there any more wisdom in Teman?" Right? Where are the wise men? Right? This is what you got to do. Let's do a pop quiz. But let's finish it.
Second question. Who has murdered Americans and Europeans in cold blood? Is it A, Al Qaeda, B, Hamas, C, Hezbollah, D, Iran, or E, all of the above? Go ahead. Again. So
Now
here's the
listen
point
to
I
this
wanted to
part.
make. Our enemies hate all of us.
Now check that out, right? Because he just showed a board that showed who basically deletes Americans and Europeans. And when they say Americans and Europeans, they ain't talking about the so-called Black Americans, right? They're not talking about the so-called Chinese Europeans, right? They're not talking about the so-called Indian Americans. They're talking about the Edomites that live in America, and they're talking about the Europeans that live in America. And when he said what? The point is our enemies hate all of us because this individual is the same nation, going back to the, word or the word ethnos, right? Which means your genes, okay? They come from the same genealogy of the so-called, white Americans and the so-called white Europeans. They're all Edomites. They're all are Edomites.
The point I wanted to make. Our enemies hate all of us with equal venom. They want to drag the modern world back to the past, to a dark age of violence, fanaticism, and terror.
You see, they don't want to. This modern world is their world. This is their age, right? This is Esau's age. So when they think about going back, right, they're talking about post Roman Empire. They're talking about post the Greeks. They're talking about when Esau wasn't in any position of power. So that's what they're trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid, you know, them losing their footing, right? Them losing their dominion on the earth. But see, you're not. I mean, if you want to talk about going back, yeah, we are going to go back, right? We are going to go back to when Israel ruled. We're talking about going all the way back, right? But um, when when we go, as time progresses, right? As time progresses, you're going to be exposed to who you really are. Everything is going to be revealed, as the Lord said, right? In the end, right? Nothing that is hid. Let me pull it up. Nothing that is what is that? Luke 19, I believe. Not 19. Um, Nothing hid. Oops, nothing hid. Was it 9? Oh, 8. Luke 8, Luke chapter 8, verse 17. It says, "For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad." Okay. So you them doing all this, trying to, use these bulletin points and make it as if, they're the victim when really they're the villains. It's not working. Okay. You're trying to hide yourself. I don't know if it's in this one or the other ones. I watched a few of them, but he he basically tried to, invoke Moses because he said something to the effect, to speaking to Hamas. He said, "Let my people go," right? Talking about the quote unquote hostages. Like I said, you're through, man. Mad corny, all right? Mad corny, and it's not going to, work because the truth is out. All right, the truth has been revealed. Um, or is there any other one? Yeah, I want to play this one.
Netanyahu just wrapped up his speech. It was quite a long speech, actually.
Not that one, Salakia.
The assembly will hear an address.
Salakia, just bear with me. I'm trying to find it.
Now to some breaking news from the United Nations. Just as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took the stage to address world leaders, dozens of delegates from multiple nations walked out in protest. In the wake of mounting international criticism over Israel's recent military actions, Netanyahu touted its successes just moments after that walkout.
We crushed the bulk of Hamas's terror machine. We crippled Hezbollah, taking out most of its leaders and much of its weapons arsenal. You remember those beepers?
Now to some breaking news from the United Nations. Just as Israeli...
Salakia. That's what I just watched. Oh yeah, that's pretty much it on that. But let me oh, this
Within
is the
the
one I
past
wanted.
couple of
Salakia.
hours,
Yeah, this is the one I want to show.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a defiant speech at the UN General Assembly in New York. It comes amid accusations of war crimes and growing pressure to end the war in Gaza. Dozens of world leaders walked out before he told the assembly that Israel must finish the job against Hamas, despite growing international isolation. NBC's Matt Bradley has more from Tel Aviv.
Well, we just heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the latest world leader to address the United Nations General Assembly. He used maps, he used props, various other stunts and gimmicks that kind of brought this speech to life.
Yeah, there you go. Stunts and gimmicks. See? If you are telling the truth, you don't need to use the gimmicks. Right? You wouldn't need to do that. Let's see. Would a fugitive use gimmicks? I'm just asking questions. See? A fugitive, all right, someone fleeing capture, typically from law enforcement, might use gimmicks to hide their identity or to evade detection, depending on how we define gimmicks. Since the term gimmicks generally refers to tricks or schemes or attention-grabbing tactics often used to deceive or distract, let's explore whether a fugitive would employ such methods, tying into your previous question about a choice part. So yeah, so it's not about that part. But as you just see, right, a gimmick is a clever and unconventional tactic, often theatrical or deceptive, used to achieve a goal. And that is why we always say, starting with the elders and apostles, with the truth, the men of the Lord, the prophets, we don't need any gimmicks, man. We don't need to be rapping. We don't need to be doing pop the balloons. None of that, man. All we got to do is just teach the gospel, teach the word, teach the scriptures, and edify the elect. All right? That's it. When you got to use gimmicks, that means that you don't got the truth. And as it just says right here, it's a tricks, it's schemes. And when you go into Ephesians, it speaks about the wiles of the devil, right? Ephesians 6, verse 11. Put on the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. We'll see what that word wiles means, right? Cunning arts, deceit, craft, trickery. See that? Trickery. And that is what a witch, would do, right? That is what a divinator would use. They use tricks. A sorcerer uses tricks to deceive, right? And what are they tricking? Your senses. But when you are spiritually minded, when you look through, your spiritual eyes, you can see right past those gimmicks, man. And a lot of people are now, because the truth that is being far spread, right? And Esau is just becoming more and more sloppy with his schemes and his tricks. It's not working anymore. All right. That's why people are calling him out. That's why people are, disdaining him. That's why he is greatly despised.
This time, he had a QR code on his shirt, on a button, saying
gotta do all
that if
this.
viewers were able to hold up their phones and scan the QR code, they would see an explanation for Israel's war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Now, at the same time, the prime minister was addressing somewhat an empty room. Dozens of delegates from countries, many of whom have long ago recognized Palestinian statehood, walked out as the prime minister took the dais. We saw from the Israeli delegation who was there that they were clapping at many of these applause lines, but many of these applause lines didn't get that much support because there weren't that many people in the room. Now, the speech was basically Netanyahu.
See, there wasn't that many applauses because there wasn't that many people in the room. All right, let's get this here in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 49, verse 10. It says, "But I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself." See that? He shall not be able to hide himself. Because of what? Because his truth has revealed him. The wicked is revealed. The fugitive is caught. You're caught, what did it say? You're caught red-handed, right? You went around doing all of this, destruction, but now you are caught. And now it's time, right? We're at the time where your judgment is at hand. Let's read on. It says, "His seed is spoiled, his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not." So everybody that he's aligned with, all of the tribes of Esau, they're all through. Okay, now everybody's tired of the Edomite rulership. Even Edomites, even low-level Edomites, is tired of it. "Leave thy fatherless children; I will preserve them alive. Let not thy widows trust. Let thy widows trust in me." All right, this is speaking to who? Israel, right? It says, "For thus saith the Lord: Behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup has assuredly drunken." And I was speaking about Israel, right? And a part of that cup left us, left the children fatherless, left the widows, left the women without husbands, right? And we had a drink of that cup, and that cup was what? The punishment, the captivity. And the Lord put us into the hand of them that hate us, right? As it says in Isaiah 47, they did show us no mercy. It says, thou art, Salakia, and art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. So now it's time for you to drink of it. And the cup that you're going to drink, you're going to have to drink all the double of it, the dregs thereof, pour without mixture. See, because the Lord said, if he did this unto those he loved, right? It was at Jeremiah 29. What do you think he going to do to you, to the one he hates? Jeremiah 29, verse where is it? Where is it at? Let's see. So bear with me, trying to find this. Is it? No, it might be Jeremiah. Is it 25? Yeah, Jeremiah 25, verse, verse 29 says, "For lo, I began to bring an evil on the city which is called by my name, and shall ye be utterly unpunished? Ye shall not be unpunished, for I will call for a sword upon all the inhabitants of the earth, saith the Lord of hosts." You see? So now it's time for you to drink, starting with Esau, but all of these nations. Okay? You're going to surely drink of this cup. So going back to Jeremiah 49, it says, what? For I have sworn by myself, saith the Lord, that Basra shall become a desolation, and a reproach, and a waste, and a curse, and all the cities thereof shall be perpetually wastes. Because that is the final judgment when the judge comes. We are the ones that are just, the ambassadors, right? We are the ones that are. So I have heard. Here you go. I have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent unto the heathen, saying, "Go, gather ye together, and come against her, and rise up to the battle." Right, the messengers. Right, and this is what we're saying: proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war, and ultimately this war is going to do what? Destroy Esau. Is going to take out the Edomite hegemony. Okay. And then with that, when Yahweh Shai returns, all of these nations and all of their armies are going to be destroyed, right? And the residue of the heathen are going to go into captivity. Okay. But the main judgment is coming upon Esau, Edom, right? And chiefly Amalek, as the scripture says, the Lord shall have war with Amalek from generation to generation. You see, so that's pretty much. I just want to touch on that, Lord willing. This was edifying unto the elect, giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Shalom.